My name is Dani Calloway. I am 34 years old. I work as a dental hygienist in Fayetteville, North Carolina, 4 days a week, and I am raising 2 kids on my own. Mason is 9. Brooke is 6. My husband, Staff Sergeant Ryan Calloway, serves with the 82nd Airborne Division at Fort Bragg. Ryan has deployed 3 times in 6 years. Afghanistan in 2019. Kuwait in 2021. Afghanistan again in 2023. Combined, he has been gone for 31 months out of our 72-month marriage. That is more than 2.5 years of solo parenting, sole financial management, and handling every single thing that comes with running a life, raising 2 kids, and holding a household together, all while wearing the title of military wife like it was supposed to explain everything. I never complained. I never asked for help. I never fell apart in front of anyone who mattered. I am telling you this now because 3 months ago, Ryan's mother, Dani Calloway, told his aunt, his cousin, and her entire Sunday Bible study group that I was, and I am quoting directly, barely holding it together. She said that if Ryan deployed again, someone needed to think seriously about what was best for those children. Those children, Mason and Brooke, my children, the ones I have fed, bathed, driven, comforted, homeworked, and raised through 3 deployments, 2 hurricanes, 1 broken arm, and a global pandemic. Someone needed to think seriously. I thought seriously. I thought seriously for about 2 weeks. Then I opened a spreadsheet. But I need to start at the beginning because the spreadsheet is the ending. And you need to understand everything that came before it to understand why I walked into that Easter Sunday dinner with a manila folder and laid it on the table right next to Dani Calloway's famous deviled eggs. Ryan and I met at a backyard barbecue in 2017. He was 24, broad-shouldered, quiet in the way that felt like stillness rather than absence. I was 27, already established in my hygienist job, already used to doing things myself. We dated for 8 months. He proposed on a Tuesday night in the parking lot of a Cracker Barrel because we had just had dinner, and he said he did not want to wait for a fancier moment. I said yes in a Cracker Barrel parking lot. That should tell you everything you need to know about both of us. We got married in October 2018, small ceremony, Fort Bragg Chapel. Linda in the front row in a blue dress she had driven to Raleigh to buy specifically because she wanted to look nice for her son's wedding. She cried during the vows, real tears, not performance. I remember thinking she loves him so much. What a gift to marry into that. I did not know yet what loving Ryan so much would eventually cost me. The first deployment came 8 months after the wedding. Afghanistan. Ryan left on a gray January morning with a duffel bag and a kiss that lasted longer than usual. Mason was 2. I was 3 months pregnant with Brooke and had not told anyone yet except my own mother, who lived in Charlotte and who drove up the weekend Ryan left and stayed for 10 days just to make sure I was eating. Linda called that first week. She called every week after, not to ask what I needed to ask about Ryan. Had I heard from him? What did he say? Was he safe? Was he eating? I answered every question. I sent her photos whenever Ryan managed a video call. I forwarded screenshots of his messages when the connection was too bad to talk. I was her pipeline, her comfort, her reassurance. And I did it gladly because she was his mother and she was scared, and I understood fear. What I did not understand yet was that the pipeline only ran one direction. Brooke was born in June, 7 weeks before Ryan came home. My mother drove up from Charlotte and stayed through the birth. Linda sent flowers, a pink arrangement with a card that said, "Can't wait to meet her." She did not visit for 6 weeks after that. She had a nail appointment she did not want to reschedule, then a church retreat, then she said the drive was just so long. Raleigh to Fayetteville is 1 hour and 50 minutes. My mother made that drive 11 times in Brooke's first year. Linda made it twice. I noted that. Not in a spreadsheet yet. Just in the back of my mind, the way you file away something that does not quite add up but that you are not ready to name. Ryan came home in August 2019. We had 10 good months before the second deployment, the closest thing to a normal life we have had as a family. He coached Mason's t-ball team. He learned Brooke's bedtime routine. He fixed the gutter that had been sagging since March and figured out where I kept the insurance cards and what day the trash went out. 10 months. Then Kuwait. The second deployment was different. I had done it once before, so I knew the shape of it. I knew how the first week felt like falling, and how by week 3 you found your footing, and how by month 3 you had built a whole parallel life that worked without him. And I knew how when he came back, you had to carefully dismantle that parallel life to make room for two again. What I had not learned yet was Linda. She called more during the second deployment, which sounds like a good thing. It was not. She called to tell me what I should be doing. Mason looked thin in photos, had I had him checked. Brooke's hair always looked messy. Was everything okay? She had seen on the Fort Bragg spouses Facebook group that there was a support meeting on Tuesday nights. Was I going? I should be going. It would be good for me. I was working 4 days a week. I was raising 2 children alone. I was managing the mortgage, car payments, health insurance, Ryan's loan deferments, and quarterly check-ins with the financial advisor Ryan had set up before leaving, appointments that required someone to actually show up. I was not going to Tuesday night support meetings, but I smiled on the phone and said I would think about it. One Thursday evening during the second deployment, I got a call from Mason's school. He had gotten into a scuffle on the playground. Nothing serious, no one was hurt, but a teacher needed a parent to come in. I left Brooke with Janet next door, drove to the school, sat across from the principal, listened, apologized on Mason's behalf, and talked to him in the car about using words instead of hands. That night, Mason cried for his dad. Quietly. Face pressed into his pillow, shoulders shaking. I held him for 45 minutes. After he fell asleep, I sat on the hallway floor outside his room with my back against the wall, eating a granola bar and staring at the ceiling. I did not cry. I had decided somewhere along the way that crying was a luxury I could not afford on a school night. I did not tell Linda about Mason's fight. I did not tell her about the hallway floor or the granola bar. I told her Ryan had called on Sunday and sounded good. She said, "Oh, thank God." She said, "He is so strong." She said, "I don't know how he does it." I said, "Me neither." Ryan came home from Kuwait in March 2022. He was quieter than after the first deployment, slower to laugh. He started running at 5 in the morning, which was new. He went to mandatory transition counseling and came back from those sessions without talking about what happened in them, and I did not push because I had learned to read the shape of his silence. We were okay, not perfect, okay. Real okay, not performance okay. Linda visited twice in 2022. Both times she stayed 3 days. Both times she spent the majority of her time talking to Ryan, sitting beside him at dinner, asking about Kuwait, asking what came next, watching him like she was trying to memorize him before he disappeared again. I cooked every meal. I handled both kids' bedtimes. I did the grocery run the morning she arrived because I had learned her dietary preferences had shifted to low sodium. I washed the guest room sheets after she left. When she said goodbye, she hugged Ryan for 4 minutes in the driveway. She hugged me with one arm, the polite side hug, and said, "You are doing such a good job, honey." I said, "Thank you, Linda." Ryan watched from the doorstep. He caught my eye. He knew. He had always known. He just did not know what to do about it. And I had never asked him to do anything about it, because the last thing a man working through combat trauma needs is to be placed between his wife and his mother. I was protecting everyone. That was what I did. The third deployment came in January 2023. Afghanistan again. Ryan left on the same gray morning energy as the first time, just older now, both of us older. Mason was 9 and asking real questions about where his dad was going and why. I told him the truth in 9-year-old portions. His dad was doing an important job. We would talk to him on video call every Sunday. Our job was to take care of each other and the house. Mason nodded. He was so much like Ryan, quiet in the way that felt like stillness. Brooke did not understand geography, but she understood absence. She started sleeping with Ryan's Fort Bragg hoodie. She brought it to the breakfast table. She would not let me wash it for 6 weeks. I let her keep it unwashed. The trouble started in September 2023, 8 months into the third deployment. Ryan was due home in November. We were close. Everyone could feel the finish line. Linda called on a Saturday morning with a tone I had not heard from her before. Not worried about Ryan, something else. She said she had been talking to Aunt Roberta. Roberta was Linda's older sister, 68, lived in Greensboro, had strong opinions about everything and the volume to match. Linda said Roberta had seen my Instagram. I had posted a photo the week before. Me and Janet's sister at a wine bar downtown. Girls' night, first one in 4 months. 3 women in their 30s who had earned a glass of Sauvignon Blanc on a Friday. I was wearing a red top, My hair was down. Linda said Roberta thought it looked like I was out a lot. I gripped the phone. That is the first time I have been out socially since April, I said. I know, honey, but Roberta just thought, with Ryan gone and the kids were at a confirmed planned sleepover, I said. At a family we have known for 2 years. I am not judging you, Fiona. My name is Dani, I said. Quietly, I know your name, Dani. I am just saying people talk. People see things. You are a military wife and people notice. I said I would be careful. I hung up and sat at my kitchen table and looked at the wall for a long time. I was not angry yet. I was something quieter than angry. The feeling you get when you finally see the shape of something that has been there a long time. I opened my laptop. I opened a new spreadsheet. I titled it Calloway Family Record. And I started typing. The spreadsheet took 3 evenings to build. After the kids were in bed, at the kitchen table with a cup of tea going cold, pulling dates from my phone calendar, from email receipts, from the Notes app where I had been logging things without quite knowing why. Column A was the date, column B was the task, column C was time spent, column D was estimated cost if outsourced. Deployment 1, January to August 2019, 8 months. Solo parenting 2 children including 1 newborn, 240 days, average 14-hour active parenting day. Monthly bill pay and financial management, 3 hours a month, 8 months. Ryan's loan deferment paperwork, 6 submissions, 2 hours each. Health insurance enrollment update after Brooke's birth, 4 hours. VA family support documentation, 3 filings. Communication liaison to Linda, weekly calls, photo updates, message screenshots, approximately 90 minutes a week for 32 weeks, 48 hours. I kept going through deployment 2, deployment 3. The years in between. The financial advisor meetings. The school enrollment transfers. The 3 times I coordinated Ryan's family travel for leave periods because Linda did not know how to book flights online and Aunt Roberta always needed special accommodation and someone had to manage the calendar. When I finished, I sat back and looked at the total. Across 6 years, not counting basic household labor, just documented additional tasks, logistics, paperwork, coordination, financial management, over 700 hours. Estimated outsourced value at conservative market rates, over $14,000. Communication liaison hours to Linda Calloway specifically, 96 hours over 3 deployments. 96 hours keeping his mother informed, reassured, and updated. 96 hours being her comfort. She had never once asked if I needed comforting. I saved the spreadsheet. I opened a second document. I titled it Incident Log. Entry 1, September 2023. Phone call from Linda. Implied I was being observed. Used the phrase people notice. Implied my social behavior was inappropriate for a military wife. Children were confirmed at a planned sleepover. By the time I finished, I had 11 entries. I printed everything, the spreadsheet, the group chat screenshots that cousin Stephanie had forwarded, the incident log. I put it all in a plain brown manila folder. Then I called my mother in Charlotte. Mom, I said, are you free Easter Sunday? Ryan drove us to Raleigh on Easter morning. I sat in the passenger seat. Mason and Brooke were in the back in their Easter clothes. Mason in a navy blazer already untucked before we hit the highway, Brooke in a yellow dress with white daisies that she had picked herself. Mommy, do I look pretty? You look exactly like yourself, which is the best thing you can look like. She accepted this and went back to her window. Ryan glanced over at me. He had seen the folder. I had not hidden it. You sure about this? He said. I looked at the road ahead. The morning was clear and bright, the kind of April day that feels like a promise. I have been sure for 6 years, I said. I just finally have the paperwork. He did not argue. He had read the group chat screenshots Stephanie forwarded. He had sat with them for 2 days without speaking much. On the 3rd day, he came to the kitchen while I was organizing the folder and stood in the doorway and said, I should have seen it. I said, you were busy surviving. He said, that is not an excuse. I said, no, but it is a reason. We drove the rest of the way in quiet. The Calloway Easter gathering was a full house. Linda had the dining room table extended to its full length, covered in a yellow tablecloth with terracotta pots of grocery store tulips down the center. Aunt Roberta was there from Greensboro, big voice, big jewelry, already holding sweet tea at 11 in the morning. Aunt Carol and her husband Don from Cary. Cousin Stephanie, who had driven down from Durham and who caught my eye the second I walked in with a look that said, "I am with you." Ryan's grandfather, Pop Calloway, 81 years old, sat in the armchair by the window watching birds at the feeder, mostly deaf and entirely unbothered by whatever was happening around him. The kids scattered immediately. Mason found Ryan's teenage nephew, and they went outside. Brooke attached herself to Pop Calloway and began explaining at full volume that she had lost a tooth, holding up the gap as evidence. Linda came to greet us at the door. She hugged Ryan first. She always hugged Ryan first. Then she turned to me, the one-arm hug, the polite one. "Dani, honey, I am so glad you came." She looked at my face. "You look tired." "I am great, Linda," I said. "Thank you for having us." She searched my expression for a moment. Then she turned back toward the kitchen. I looked at Stephanie across the room. She raised her eyebrows. I touched the folder in my bag. Not yet. Lunch was ham and scalloped potatoes, and the green bean casserole Aunt Carol brought to every gathering regardless of season. The table was loud and full, the ordinary chaos of a large family, where everyone talks at the same volume, and the kids' plates get fixed 3 times, and someone always spills something. I ate, I helped Brooke. I responded when spoken to. I watched. I watched Linda refill Ryan's tea without asking and not refill mine. I watched Aunt Roberta describe my Instagram photo to Aunt Carol 2 seats away, not knowing I could hear her. She said out like it was a character flaw. She was out. I watched Linda touch Ryan's arm 4 times in 20 minutes. I watched all of it and I was calm. Calm the way a monitor is calm before a patient codes. After the plates were cleared and before the coconut cake came out, I reached into my bag. I set the manila folder on the yellow tablecloth. The conversation died down in sections, the way noise does when something interrupts the frequency. Aunt Roberta noticed first, then Carol, then Linda looked over. "What is that?" Linda said. I opened it. My voice was level. "This is a record. I have spent the past 2 weeks documenting 6 years of this family's logistics, finances, and coordination work. I want to share it with everyone here." Ryan sat still beside me. He was the only one who had known this was coming. Linda set down her fork. "Dani, during 3 deployments," I said, "I managed this family's finances alone. Mortgage, car payments, health insurance, Ryan's loan deferments, investment account check-ins. That is over 80 hours of financial management across 6 years." Aunt Roberta's sweet tea glass stopped halfway to her mouth. "I managed every aspect of childcare for Mason and Brooke for a combined 31 months of solo parenting. I worked 4 days a week as a dental hygienist through all 3 deployments, including through a pregnancy, a newborn, a pandemic, and a school incident with my son that I handled alone. I never asked this family for 1 hour of childcare help. I looked directly at Linda, not one. Linda's hands went flat on the tablecloth. I coordinated family communication during every deployment, weekly updates, call screenshots, travel logistics for R&R visits. I spent 96 hours over 3 deployments keeping you informed and connected to your son." I looked at her steadily. "You never once asked how I was doing." The table was quiet. The only sound was the birds at the feeder and Pop Calloway saying something softly to Brooke. Cousin Stephanie sat with her hands folded, eyes on me. I turned to the second page. In September 2023, Linda called to tell me that people had noticed my social behavior. I had been at a wine bar 1 single time in 4 months. My children were at a confirmed, planned sleepover. She implied I was being watched. She used the phrase, "a military wife." Aunt Roberta straightened in her chair. I looked at her. "And Roberta, you described one photo of me laughing with friends as me being out a lot. You said it to Linda in a group text. You had never asked me one question about what my week looked like." I slid the screenshots to the center of the table. Linda reached for them slowly, like they might burn her. "But this is what I need everyone in this room to hear." I looked around the full table at Carol, at Dawn, at Stephanie, at Ryan, at Linda. "I want you to hear what Linda wrote in that group text in her own words." I read it aloud. "She is overwhelmed. She does not ask for help. That is a warning sign. Someone needs to step in before it gets to that point." I folded my hands. "Step in," I said. "Step in to do what exactly, Linda?" "Step in for children I have raised through 3 deployments without one offer of help from this family. Step into a home I have maintained and managed while your son served overseas. Step into a life you have never once asked to understand? Linda's chin was trembling. If you had concerns about my children, I said, you could have called me. You could have driven the hour and 50 minutes you managed to drive twice in 6 years, and you could have shown up and asked. But you did not call me. You built a case in a group text. I looked at Ryan. Your mother has been planting seeds, Ryan, not loudly, not with lawyers. Just quietly in the right conversations with the right words, laying the groundwork for a story where I am the unstable, overwhelmed military wife who cannot cope. And when I finally collapse under all of it, she steps in. Ryan's jaw was tight. He was looking at his mother. Linda's eyes had filled with tears. That is not what she started. I let her speak. I am worried about you, she said. Her voice broke. I have always been worried about you. You never ask for help. You never tell me what you need. I do not know how to reach you. I do not know how to be part of this family when you handle everything yourself and shut everyone out. I waited until she was completely done. Then I said, quietly, you have my phone number. She blinked. I have had the same phone number for 6 years, I said. You have used it 96 times to ask about Ryan. You have never used it to ask about me, so do not tell me I shut you out. I was right there the whole time. The table did not move. Aunt Roberta set down her sweet tea glass. Stephanie looked at the tablecloth. Don put his arm around Carol. Ryan reached under the table and put his hand over mine. I was not done. There are going to be some changes, I said, same level voice. The voice I used with insurance companies and school administrators and anyone who needed to understand that I was not asking. I am done being the invisible infrastructure of this family. I am done coordinating, communicating, and managing things that were never my job and were never acknowledged. I looked at Linda. If you want a relationship with my children, you call me. Not Ryan. Not through the aunt chain, me. And you ask, not assume, not observe from a distance and build theories. You ask. Linda nodded. One tear had tracked down her cheek. And if I ever hear that you have implied, suggested, hinted, or whispered to anyone in this family or outside of it that my children would be better off somewhere else, we will be having a different conversation. With a lawyer present, the dining room was completely still. Pop Calloway pointed at the window. Redbird, he announced to Brooke. Brooke pressed her nose to the glass. Grandpa, it is so red. I closed the folder. I stood up. I walked to the kitchen and poured myself a glass of water and stood at the sink looking out at the backyard where Mason and Ryan's nephew were throwing a football in the April sunshine. Stephanie appeared beside me 30 seconds later. She handed me a deviled egg. That was the most precise thing I have ever seen in my life, she said. I ate the deviled egg. It was good. Ryan drove home. The kids were asleep in the backseat before we hit the highway. He did not speak for 20 minutes. Then he said, I owe you more than an apology. I looked at him. I have been letting you carry all of it, he said, because you are good at carrying it, because you never dropped anything. Because I told myself that meant you were fine. I know, I said, that was not fair. No, I said, it was not. He kept his eyes on the road. I want to do this differently, he said. I want to know how. I looked at him for a long moment. This man I had married in a Cracker Barrel parking lot. This man whose hoodie my daughter had slept with for 6 weeks because it was the closest thing to him. Start by asking, I said. Not assuming I have it handled, just asking, he nodded. Every day, I said. Every day, he said. The week after Easter was quiet in the way that follows something loud. Linda did not call. Aunt Roberta did not text. The group chat, according to Stephanie, had gone completely silent. On Thursday, a card arrived in the mail. Linda's handwriting on the envelope. Inside, a plain white card with no printed sentiment, just her own writing. It said, I did not know you were keeping track. I did not know because I was not paying attention. I am sorry for that. I do not know how to fix 6 years, but I would like to try, one conversation at a time, if you will let me. I read it at the kitchen table. I did not cry. I put the card in the drawer with the kids' birth certificates and the mortgage papers. Not forgiveness. Not yet, but a door left open a crack. Brooke came into the kitchen. Mommy, can we call Grandma Linda? I looked at her. Maybe next week, baby. She accepted this and left. Ryan was at a transition appointment on base, talking to someone for the first time about the things he had not talked about before. He had made that appointment himself the week after Easter without me asking. That was new. I opened my laptop, not the spreadsheet, a new document. I titled it Things I Need. It was the first time in 6 years I had made that list. I typed slowly. 8 hours of sleep more than 4 nights a week. A standing date night once a month where Ryan handles all logistics. Time to call my mother without it being a crisis call. One morning per week that starts after 7 a.m., a partner who asks before he assumes. I typed until the list was a full page. Then I saved it, printed it, and left it on the kitchen table where Ryan would see it when he got home. I made a sandwich. I ate the whole thing. 3 months later, things had shifted. Linda visited in July. She drove herself the 1 hour and 50 minutes. She called before she came. She brought nothing and offered nothing except 2 days of showing up and asking what she could do. One evening she gave Brooke a bath. I stood in the hallway and listened to Brooke narrate the entire plot of a book she was reading, while Linda listened and asked questions in the right places. I stood there for several minutes and did not move. Linda washed the breakfast dishes the next morning without being asked. Before she left, she hugged me both arms, longer than before. She said, "I hear you now." I said, "Good." That was enough, not everything, but enough. Mason made the baseball team that spring. Ryan came to every single game, not just the ones that fit his schedule. Everyone, with a folding chair and a thermos of coffee, and a look on his face I recognized. It was the same look I had been wearing alone for 6 years. He was learning the weight and the shape of it. Brooke turned 7 in August. She asked for a purple birthday cake, a sleepover with 2 friends, and a card from Grandma Linda specifically. I called Linda and told her what Brooke wanted. She sent a card with a purple glitter sticker on the envelope and a $20 bill inside and a short note in her own handwriting. Brooke carried that card to school for 3 days. I did not start a new spreadsheet. I did not need one. But I kept the old one backed up, saved, stored in a folder I titled simply Record. Not for a lawyer, not for another dinner table. Just so I would always know that it happened, that I carried all of it, that I documented it, that I told the truth out loud in front of everyone and did not flinch once. And that when I finally set it down, I set it down on my own terms. Ryan asked me once, on a Sunday evening in September, both of us on the back porch with the last of the summer heat still in the air and the kids long asleep inside. "Do you regret it, the folder, the dinner?" I thought about it honestly. "No," I said, "I regret that it was necessary." He nodded. We sat there a while. The backyard was dark and quiet. The basketball hoop he had put up the week after coming home was a shadow at the far end of the yard. "I spent 6 years figuring it out," I said. "I know," he said. "I just needed to finally let someone else see the bill." He took my hand. The night was warm. The folder stayed in the drawer where it belonged. And for the first time in a very long time, I did not have to figure anything out alone.